This video may shock you because it actually shocked me when I took the time to crunch the numbers for you today. Is this a time we should look to sell altcoins? Mathematically speaking, at the very end, I'm going to actually go through a situation with the portfolio here to explain to you why maybe selling is actually not a bad idea here. Now, hold your horses, don't freak out, wait for the very end to hear that. But I want to also go over some charts in this video as well that will explain, I think, a bull and a bear case for this cycle. And we'll also be taking a pulse on the macro market because as far as I'm concerned, the macro market is the most important thing to assess right now. So before we get into it, make sure to stay up to date with all the best and most important crypto news. Hit that like button, subscribe with the bell on, and let's begin. The tax on fast, easy, big money is always going to be your emotions. This is something I tweeted out today, and I just wanted to remind everyone that this game was never designed to be easy. And if it were easy, we'd all be rich from the previous cycles. As people have gotten smarter over the cycles, as more evangelists like myself from 2021 or 2018 have come into fruition, it's been a lot harder for the market makers and the guys trying to make their multi-billions to max extract value from you and I. That is why I think a lot of this is obviously, as you're seeing, that the whales are buying and accumulating here while retail is selling, because the way in which they make you capitulate and sell is by drawing out the market, is by making us wait. And we look at news like this, right? Texas actually here literally approving a Bitcoin reserve. Not just they're going to pretty much hold the confiscated Bitcoin like they're doing on the federal level. These guys are actively buying Bitcoin now, or will be soon, of course. But there are, of course, some dangerous signs that we must pay attention to. One of the so-called danger signs can also be a way you can look at this sort of chart here and look at all of the massive bullishness we've had over the last couple of years and go to yourself, well, considering we've only had pretty much three major sort of bad news or announcements over this time, how are we not far and away from where we are right now? Why aren't we up here? As we should all know, a lot of the time when the bullish news no longer services the market, that is a sign of the top being in. So that's, of course, one negative thing. You can also change this when you compare it to the ICO bull run or the 2017 bull run, when we had a lot of news as well, but nowhere near the same amount of news, all the way down the bottom here, kind of like constricted. And then we kind of had copious amounts of bad news on the way up, and we still had that massive bull run. So there is a bullish and there also is a bearish way to have a look at the situation. And I want to just quickly mention now to be very careful listening to YouTubers or people on Twitter, anyone for that matter, about what they personally think will happen, because anyone short of the best economists in the world will likely just be guessing at this point, because we are so up in the air with tariffs and a whole bunch of other stuff that is, again, uncertain. So no one knows what's going to happen in any market right now. And we are kind of just feeding our confirmation bias. As hard as it is to obviously say that, as much as I try to be on the fence, I know I catch myself out trying to analyze charts to suit a bullish narrative, because I am all in the market right now. I'm not all in cash. I'm assuming those who are bearish are likely all in cash right now, who want lower prices to buy back in. I guess overall, though, who's really winning here? Doesn't matter if it goes up, down, left, or right. The real winners here are these guys, the market makers, the centralized exchange owners, because you can see all the longs and all the shorts opened up. Here's probably a better look into that. There is around $2 billion worth of longs and about $10 billion worth of shorts opened up on just Bitcoin right now. So the market makers, and of course the market makers like to work with the centralized exchanges, love this because they love to work on Bitcoin or macro news that sends the price higher or lower, because they get to just push the snowball down the hill, move the market in that direction, and make a whole bunch of money liquidating you and me. Now, what are they doing with these liquidations? Well, at least charts like this indicate they could possibly be buying, and they've been buying a lot ever since we've been going through this chop and this boredom, this psychological warfare, since about July of last year. So I'm not saying that these large investors are solely the guys screwing us over, the centralized exchanges and the market makers, but what I'm saying is they would definitely be some of those people. So it's interesting because retail have, of course, been selling off more recently here, since we broke about $88,000, which is a crossover we saw in the early parts of 2015, right before that massive 2018 bull run. And that's the thing, be careful. Again, you can already see it's confirmation bias. I'm trying to be bullish right here. So there are definitely bearish signs to look at as well. I do not want to forget that. Now, some isolated bearish things could include looking at how much people were recently in profit, right? Net realized profit and loss, all right? This pretty much says, hey, if we were a stock or a company, we can see what the average holder in that particular stock is up or down right now. I mean, who the hell wouldn't want to use an amazing tool like that? Because obviously, if everyone and their mother is in a profit on that stock, yeah, it's only a matter of time before they start to sell, and everyone's going to capitulate, of course, if it's also paired with macro bearish news. And that's what this chart looks at, as well as this chart right here, and even this chart. I mean, recently, guys, we had almost 100% of people in profit. Of course, that will cause a pullback to some degree, whether or not we have favorable macro conditions. It's only a matter of time. It is a ticking time bomb. So in accumulation, looking at all of these charts, there is a case to be made that, yes, as you can see here from the top of the 2011 cycle, right from Bitcoin's inception, if we actually drew a trend line down, there actually is this sort of like diminishing profit return that we do have in each cycle. I mean, we didn't even get into the blue zone here in 2021, okay, meaning that there was a lot of profit taken happening before we even had that blow off top moment, meaning we have more people involved and these people recognize profit when it's in front of them. So again, I'm isolating these instances here. Again, you can draw the same thing on this chart, right? This trend line from back here all the way down to almost indicate we have like a less basically volatility, ups and downs and swings before people decide to take profit, all right? And you can look at these things in isolation and go, oh my God, this is a confirmation that things aren't the same, diminishing returns, lengthening cycles, and say, well, the bear market's already here, or at least we're going to be going into that. But again, you're feeding confirmation bias. There are much bigger things at play than just simply analyzing people being in profit. So like I said, I'm not here to kind of pull every single situation into one video, but one thing I want to really stress before we get into this portfolio here is just having a look at why we are so correlated to now, the QQQ, for example, right? Invesco's index of the top 100 NASDAQ companies, right? Why are we so connected to tech stocks? Why have we now synchronized ourselves to the M2 money supply, right? Global liquidity, you can see if I toggle this here, and if I change the lead to 11 weeks, roughly speaking, you'll see these really synchronize up, as you can see here. Like, why is this all happening? It's just because Bitcoin has now evolved, thanks to, again, like the adoption bull run here, into a worldwide global, against commodity, right? Or essentially a form of currency. It's gone past the point of it being this sort of nascent asset, even though it really is, nascent asset class, into now, again, nations and institutions and large angel investors being able to buy it up. So in that same respects, guys, we are now at the complete whim of the NASDAQ, the stock market, traditional equities, and more importantly, as we've ever been before, global liquidity and things like this. So when we see some of these massive retracements, it's actually just as important for you to do TA and analyze what's happening here with the NASDAQ and tech stocks, particularly when you have a look at investor portfolios these days. I mean, yes, we're having a lot of people now expose themselves to Bitcoin, and this is fantastic, but as this chart shows, this is the furthest asset they own on the risk curve, right? You got your S&P funds over here, you've got your indexes and all the rest of it in traditional markets, even bonds, right, way down here, whatever. But Bitcoin may actually be in their portfolios. The thing is, they're not even thinking about altcoins, let alone Ethereum, because they are the furthest point along that risk curve. The only way you're going to get someone that's a traditional investor to actually go ahead and buy altcoins is if it's favorable macro conditions. Interest rates, right? Inflation is coming down. Economies are being stimulated. There's people borrowing. There's lending happening. All right. And again, we don't even need to be, I don't think, in a state of QE. I think being neutral is just fine for us because the 2017 cycle, we were completely neutral that whole entire time. And yet we still had a massive bull run. But we do need a state of mind for the average person here to be like, hey, things are blowing up, things are going crazy. It does make sense for me to go ahead and like maybe even sell my Bitcoin and go on altcoins, because screw getting a 20% gain when there's people making over here 3, 4, 5x's every other week. Don't get me wrong, guys. Like, of course, we have the traditional investor now exposed to crypto thanks to banks being more open to that, and nations, thanks to the US pushing it, now buying it themselves. I mean, even Peter Schiff, the biggest Bitcoin bear in the world, now actually accepts it. Fantastic stuff, right? We also do have the traditional crypto bro like you and I. We've always going to be buying altcoins and Bitcoin. That is still there. That market is most definitely still there. But now we expect these big boys, institutions and so on, these traditional investors, to be buying our bags. So if they aren't doing that, we're not bullish. It's kind of what's happening right now. Nothing in the market is inherently different other than the sentiment is mainly bringing us down thanks to macro conditions, of course, push even further by things like those traditional equity markets coming down. I mean, it's all syncing up. It all just makes a lot of sense to me. So it's very important for us to right now assess things like this more than ever before. I mean, it's obviously been important to the day, but it is so much more important now to wherever things are going next to look towards things like CPI, PPI, and obviously the FOMC meetings. And of course, hopefully them bringing down interest rates here in the short term to give us that fighting chance. Let me just reiterate, guys, I am not completely bearish. Am I bearish a little bit? I wouldn't say I'm bearish. I'm just a little bit skeptical. I'm a little bit concerned, and I'm looking right now at the charts more than ever before to try to get that glimpse into what's coming. You would be an absolute moron, all due respect if this is you, to not be considering at least both sides of the stories right now, no matter how bullish or bearish you are. Just because it is a market, it is the world, anything can suddenly happen. Now, let's particularly look here at a portfolio, a situation in which you may kind of be pretty down right now on your sort of holdings and thinking to yourself, well, should I just sell out of all my altcoins and then buy back in now? Or if you are bearish, sell it all at a loss and then hold cash, wait for the prices to fall and fall and fall, and then maybe buy back even lower. Does that even work out? Well, I think it's pretty common for us to think it's a very bad thing. And actually, what surprised me here is I, for the longest time, thought, no, don't ever do that, right? Don't ever like materialize a substantial loss. Okay, in this case, you can see here, this person's invested $41,000 into a portfolio. Their current holdings is $24,000, so they've actually lost. They're actually down. They haven't materialized the losses yet. They haven't sold, but they're down 40%. Now, should this person here look at selling, okay, their goal is to make $300,000 out of the market. They need a 9.5x. So you can see here, the average sell price, I'll just get you guys to remember this, is $40 here for Near Protocol, renders 50, Ondo, and so on. Either way, these sell prices, just for argument's sake, are to show you that this person here is, including their tax bill, trying to, at the end of the day, make $300,000. That's the sort of goal. Now, what happens if we decide to sell all of these assets? We'll have $25K in cash, so we've materialized a loss of about $15,000. We've lost about 40% of our portfolio, but we have $25K cash, and let's now go and hypothetically buy back in again at today's prices. Well, if we do that, again, the goal being $300,000, again, our cost basis now is about $25K. And we buy back in straight away. Okay, what's interesting is that we actually end up getting all of the amounts we had before. So I'll flick back over. You can see we've pretty much gained a little bit of tokens and actually maybe just lost a couple of tokens here and there. So pretty much we've just gained everything back nice and square to where we are right now. Okay, but the difference is that still the same average sell prices, by the way. We're still selling at the same prices as you can see here. But the only difference is the multiples now have gone up. What does this mean? Well, of course, if we're still aiming to make $387,000, we've put less money in the market, we need a 12x rather than a 9.5x. So nothing's actually changed. Like, yes, we've lost money, we've actually sold, but from a standpoint of like going in at lower prices, from a standpoint of now looking to, of course, be in the same position you were before, but maybe have the benefit of two things. One, you've tax loss harvest, so you can use the money that you've actually realized as a loss to take off your tax bill. By the way, this is not financial advice, guys. Let me just say right now, this is hypothetical, of course. It's all hypothetical. I'm not saying to do this. And then you've got that money, so you've reduced your tax bill for that financial year. But also, you now, if you so choose to, don't actually have to buy back in straight away. I mean, this is buying back in straight away. You're in the same position you were before, okay? It just looks weirder because you're making less multiples before than you are now, but it's the same sell price. Nothing's changed apart from, again, just the same sell price and just more multiples on paper. But again, you have the ability to maybe hold off, essentially do this, and maybe wait for prices to fall down a little bit more before you buy back in. So you see the average buy price over here? Rather than us jumping back in straight away, all right, so selling at these prices and buying back in straight away, if we believe the market will fall lower, so we hold our 25K cash or our 24.5K cash, whatever it is, and we just wait for the market to fall, you have the option to then buy back in at a substantial discount. So you essentially can, let's just hypothetically say, get back into near protocol. Rather than buying at an average price of $2.50 over here, maybe you get in at $2. So you get in at 20% cheaper, which is definitely possible. Render over here, you get in at $2.50 rather than buying back in straight away at $3. Okay, so what you're essentially doing here is you've got an average drop of about 24% across all your altcoins. Even if you have your sell prices the same, what happens here is on paper the multiples are more, but guys, it's still the same sell prices as you had way back in the original portfolio, making $386,000 revenue. But this time, because you're actually buying in lower and therefore you actually are making more multiples, you actually will make more money overall. So the revenue here, you make $511,000, which is 32% more than what you were before, and that equates to $124,000. So this is technically, as I say here, this is technically how shorting works in markets. You can even lower your sell levels on the top side as well to achieve your goal. So you can see we're making more money. So what you could do in this situation is actually move down a whole bunch of these sell levels here to actually just get out of the market safer if you obviously wanted to buy back into altcoins like this. And you can see here you're still making a solid amount of money. Like we're making an extra $4,000 and I've just moved the average sell prices on all these coins down a whole bunch more versus what they were over here. You see this? Okay, so yes, this actually worked. This surprised me, guys. Okay, this surprised the heck out of me because I was like, we are taught and believe that you shouldn't do this because you catch your tail. But it's just like shorting. Would I recommend this? No. Please, for the love of God, don't go sell your whole portfolios and do this because this, you have to be confident on prices going lower to really maximize on it. And even then, you want to be very strategic because if hypothetically we do go into a bear market here, in my personal opinion, based on my experience, you probably want to be going into Bitcoin anyway, playing Bitcoin a few multiples before ever deciding to go back into altcoins. Again, altcoins are still going to be great, and I still believe in alts. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying here. I'm just saying if you believe in this playing out, that may be what you want to think about doing. So that's all I'll say there. Very surprising stuff. If you guys want to learn more, I'm going to make a video for the private community on this right after this video here. So I'll have that available. So join, link down below. And guys, I'll talk to you all tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching this video. Leave a like if you made it this far. Bye-bye.